really special day. And it's just beautiful to see all the statements and outpouring of love for Howard that have been circulating throughout the day and throughout this week and really this whole year. It was 20 years ago that the project that became Voices of a People's History of the United States started. It started in a bar in Brooklyn after an event that Howard and I did at a community church there. And Howard brought up one of the things that really he thought was part of the power of a people's history of the United States was not, so much his analysis and synthesis, as important as that was, but that readers discovered in the book voices that had been excluded from their traditional textbooks and education and from the culture. And they were so moved to encounter Fannie Lou Hamer and Eugene Debs and Frederick Douglass and maybe even people like King, who they had maybe been taught and shown in one light in a very different light, or Helen Keller and whoever it may be. He understood that those words, the words that inspired him to write the people's history, the words that emerged from people's movements, from social movements in history, that was the kind of part of his work. So this very interesting thing happened after we started working on this book to gather those primary sources, where HarperCollins came to Howard and said a millionth copy of A People's History had sold. It's now nearly or at 4 million copies. And of course, many more when you consider the used copies and the library copies and all and so on. But a millionth copy had sold, and they wanted to organize a conference of historians. And Howard, to Lauren's point, said very simply no. He had a different idea, and that was to bring together actors and musicians and writers to highlight and share the words of people who had spoken out against injustice from our past, and to hear how they spoke to the present. And we organized our very first performance in New York City at the 92nd Street Y. We're coming up on the 20th anniversary of that event. And there was something so powerful about hearing those words and hearing them in a collective setting. And even though it was just this one-time event, we realized that there was something incredibly important in this forum. Howard himself placed so much importance on the role of art, of theater, of music, of other forms of cultural expression. And to see the actors like Danny Glover and Marissa Tomei and James Earl Jones and musicians like Patti Smith and writers like Kurt Vonnegut share these words was galvanizing and inspiring. And it's led to many years now of organizing performances around the country and internationally, Ireland and the UK, Australia, elsewhere. But then also finding ways to bring these original sources, these documents, into schools and to work with students to understand these texts, but also themselves to take ownership over them, perform them, and bring them to life and find their own voices through that process. And so it's really exciting 20 years on to be able to continue that work and to see all of the artists and all the students who draw inspiration from Howard's work.
No doubt. No doubt. Thank you so much for sharing that, Anthony. Some of the best nights of my life have been at the Voices of a People's History shows. So really thank you for helping to organize those events.